Okay. My name is Morgan. We are a panel that represents the Tennessee Valley Authority. And
can I just introduce the team? Please.
They could introduce.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
So I'd like to just welcome everybody to the NIBS Worldwide Business Case Competition of 2014. This consultancy team is presenting from Carleton University. The presentation is going to last for 20 minutes. I'm going to signal as the timekeeper when we have 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, and then 1 minute left. Okay, please can you nod your head to let me know that you've seen the time. After the presentation, the judges are going to have 10 minutes to ask their questions, and again I will signal when you have 5, 3 and 1 minute left. Okay, again can you please nod to let me know you've seen the times. You must all stop when I indicate, even if you've not finished. I'll now give the judges some time to introduce themselves. After this introduction, you may begin.
Okay, as I said, we represent the Tennessee Valley Authority. I am Morgan, and I will allow my colleagues to introduce themselves.
My name is Vilma. I'm with Project Management.
My name is Greg Talent. I'm the Business Development Manager.
I'm Guy Bridger from Finance.
Okay, if you would like to introduce yourselves, and then you may start off.
My name is Rachel Hinchy. I look at marketing.
My name is Amanda Tindiabo. I look at strategy.
I'm Robert Curtis, and I'm looking at finance and accounting.
My name is Emma Zorski, and I'm also looking at strategy.
Okay, over to you.
Thank you and good afternoon. You are currently in an industry that is extremely important, and we believe with your focus on efficiencies, you have great opportunities. Now, we'd like for you to imagine your futures being sustainable, being efficient, and satisfying the needs of your customers. My name is Rachel, and I'm here today with my colleagues Emma, Amanda, and Rob. And we, as a Sprott School of Business, would like to recommend to you a strategy that will make that vision your reality.
Thank you, Rachel. So now that my colleague has set the tone for the vision and the future we have in mind for your company, it's critical in assessing the challenges that you're currently facing before moving forward. So through a detailed internal as well as external analysis that we will move into shortly, we have determined that how can TVA create a sustainable strategy moving forward to focus on minimizing the cost of electricity while at the same time being able to meet the increasing demand for energy. So in any strategy that we do come up with and suggest moving forward for you, we have to take in mind some strategic priorities that we have assessed from the information given us that are critical to your performance as a company. So the first one being satisfy stakeholders. You have stressed this very greatly. It's something that we have to take into consideration, that you are meeting all the needs of your different stakeholders, as you do have very many. Second one is the 5% reduction in peak usage, which you did determine as one of your goals in the next couple of years. The third one being a reliable source of power. Reliability is something that is key in the utility that you're offering, and that has to be transparent in any strategy we move forward with, along with a public brand perception. You do have a brand image that you have to uphold. This is something very critical. You have addressed some needs for being efficient and obviously being respected and trusted by your target market and by these consumers that you serve. So now looking at an external outlook of the industry. So there is no competition, there's no substitutes. You're working right now in a government regulated monopoly. So there is, of course, low buyer power. There is a large income disparity that we have looked at as an opportunity. There is that income inequality in the Valley right now. So those are two different target markets that you have to look out for when thinking about the needs of your consumers, as well as there is the new fracking technology that is a more efficient way of actually being able to extract some of the energy that you will be using. So looking at the threats, so there is renewable legislation with the government. Now there has to be certain amounts of legislation passed in terms of if the energy is renewable. Now it can't just be coal, right? You are looking out for the environment as a whole as well. That is one of your responsibilities. There is the financial crisis that has hit everyone very severely, including your company has been affected by it. Then there is a demand to fix rates. A lot of the consumers right now think that the fixed rate is what is best for their needs. This is kind of a social trend and a stigma that people have right now, as well as the volatility for fuel prices, which goes along with the economic crisis that has been taking place. So the key takeaway from the external outlook of the industry is the need to limit legislative and financial risk.
Thank you, Emma. So there's obviously going to be a tremendous challenge in meeting the demands that your market has set out for you in terms of providing energy. Looking strictly at a 1% growth rate over the next 20 years, you're looking at a necessary equivalent of 45,830 megawatt hours needed in 2032, and that doesn't even include the additional megawatt hours necessary for you to hit your 2018 target of reducing your coal power usage by 5%, which I will get into a little bit later. In order to do this, you're going to need a strategy that leverages two things. You're going to need to leverage whatever is the most profitable solution for you, while at the same time making sure that it complies to the legislative risk that Emma brought up before. These are going to be key in determining a strategy and which option we're going to pick for your company going forward. So, as I said, this is the goal calculation that we undertook to help you kind of understand what you need to do to hit that 2018 goal of reducing your coal usage by 5%. You're going to need to replace 2,291 megawatt hours per year for that time interval. We calculated this out by looking at your current mix of product, multiplying that by your megawatts by source in terms of weighting out your total megawatt usage, forecasting that out by that 1% growth rate up to 2018, finding what that total mix was, and then reducing your proportion of coal power by 5%. If the other proportions of your calculations still remain the same, you're going to need a total of 13,787 megawatt hours replaced in other sectors of your energy requirement, and you're going to need that 2,298 per year.
My colleagues have given you an overview of what industry you're looking at, but let's take an internal look at TVA right now. As with monopolistic power, you enjoy the benefits that come with upgraded facilities. You do have low cost of capital, which has enabled you to provide a bit cheaper utility prices for your customers. You've been successful in having that innovative smart meter, which although has faced the threat of low adaptability, as I mentioned in the weaknesses, this makes you stand out in the segment. Another weakness is that you are limited to the debt that you can take on as a company. You are limited in terms of the debt ceilings. There's over-reliance in terms of coal. You rely heavily on that, which can be a very high risk given that it's a very volatile market. And you have faced a bit of negative reputation. As Emma said, one of our strategic priorities moving forward will be that brand reputation that you have. You did face a negative reputation during the Kingston crisis. So the key takeaway for us here is we need to leverage your core competencies right now as a monopoly that's innovative, that's providing cheaper prices, that can meet that capacity in order to maximize your efficiency. Emma did mention in the strategic priorities that there are shareholders or stakeholders that TVA needs to account to. So what does success translate to for all these stakeholder groups? As shown here, there are three major stakeholder groups. The first of these is you're looking at your TVA management and employees. The triple bottom line is what matters to you. What's the impact you'll have on society? Are you fending off the bad media exposure from the waste reduction? Are you ensuring that your employees are paid due to revenue generation? And are you making profit as a company by making sure that you have maximum capacity? The second of this group is the government and environmental bodies. As we have both mentioned, you do want to limit that legislative as well as financial risk moving forward. And for your customers, we did in our analysis come up with two distinct customer groups. So one of the customer groups is the people living in the valley that have a low economic status. So these people are living in the slums in Appalachia, as opposed to the higher or more affluent customers that will be more likely to buy into varying options for off-peak and on-peak. So the key takeaway here is how can TVA balance the need of all these stakeholders with the strategy that we'll propose today?
Okay, so now moving into the bulk of our presentation. So going back to the key challenge in addressing the sustainable strategy we want to create for you to lower the prices of the electricity and to increase your capacity to serve the growing demand for energy. So this is a two-tiered strategy today. We're going to be addressing prices with three alternatives, which we will choose one moving forward. One being the traditional time of use, modified time of use, and a flat rate. So that's all based on a pricing strategy. And then moving on to capacity, this is in terms of the product mix. So one being more natural, more nuclear, or more renewable. So moving forward, we will be choosing one strategy to satisfy the prices tier and one strategy to satisfy the capacity.
Thank you, Emma. In terms of satisfying the price, we have to look at some of the things that you have suggested to us. Now, this is changing the rates for the time of day that is being used. Now, you have mentioned to us there is a peak time as well as an off time, and suggesting changing the prices for the peak time as well as for the off time. However, though this does promote more efficiencies and help in the environment, we have to realize that it can be detrimental for those who are working during the night shifts with lower incomes who are not able to take advantage of this. Which brings us to a second alternative of having leeway and a mid-time between the peak time and the off time. What this does is it takes away the harsh break-off of the on and off time, the peak time and the off time, so that those who are working during the night still are able to get the benefits of saving and conserving energy and having a lower price, whereas we can still, as a whole, look to the environment. Finally, you can have a flat rate, meaning that the fee will never change. Now, this does not at all help with the environmental issue and trying to promote efficiencies. However, it is equal for everybody, so all parties involved are paying the same fees regardless of when they're working and regardless of the shifts that they have to take and their income levels.
Thank you, Rachel. So based on the strategy that we will go through in a minute, we just determined that the current average price that your customers are paying is around $1.18 per kilowatt hour. In order to properly evaluate the potential with the 2 and 3 stage models, we looked at a possibility of keeping that 118 as a weighted average price in order to make sure that you still gain all of the profit that you could really keep from just having a level pricing strategy. But at the same time, looking at peak, mid-peak, and off-peak, where in the 2-stage model, there would be a 10% reduction in your off-peak hours, but not between 9 and 5, and then in the 3-stage where there would be a 5% drop-off in each. What you end up with is a possibility of having the same price income, but with a 3-stage model, you have the opportunity of overcoming that conflict with the valley consumers that you really were worried about, and helping them kind of feel comfortable that you're not gouging them for the sake of businesses, because in the same sense, by raising your peak price during the midday, the businesses in the environment will have to take more of a share in paying for that electricity cost and keeping that weighted average price kind of level in order to help benefit everybody in the whole market.
So as Rob mentioned, in terms of the quantitative analysis, we will be going forward in suggesting the three pricing model, the 2-stage model. So if you look at the numbers in terms of a quantitative analysis, we took into consideration if it promotes equality, 3 being the best and 1 being the lowest. So also if it encourages efficiency and the ease of implementation. So if it is going to be fast to implement and able to get you towards those goals that you have been discussing.
For meeting the capacity, as Emma mentioned, we do have a 2-tier strategy. So when you're looking to meet your capacity goals, well, you've mentioned lots of options, and we identified these 3 as the optimal. So either you could choose natural gases. Now the advantage to natural gas is that it's easy. It gives you a less time, so you'll be able to hit those targets of 1 new power plant per year. And it's readily available through the market, so it's easier to implement again. The disadvantage, of course, to natural gas is that it's subject to price volatility from either carbon emissions and the like. Another option could be to increase nuclear power. Now, nuclear, the obvious disadvantage for that is that there are large investment costs, and given the fact that you do get on approval every 16 years, this is not guaranteed to sustain your capacity demands. And the last of the options could be to shift to renewable resources. Now, although you'll be adapting to the social change in renewable energy such as wind, solar, you do stand the risk that they're not aligned with the region where you're in, given that it's a valley and given that it's this region of North America, you're not certain as when you'll get the sunshine or the wind generation going on.
Thank you, Amanda. So instead of showing you a large amount of Excel spreadsheets, which I have included in some appendix slides, and we will welcome any questions you have during question period, we just wanted to show you the key valuation metrics of each of these three options. By looking strictly at an NPV based on the cost of debt, which we'll get into a little further in implementation and how we're going to raise the capital, you're looking at natural gas being easily the most profitable project for your firm to undertake in the next 20 years to meet your energy goals. Again, the forecast and all of my assumptions that are in the appendix, and I welcome any questions you might have on the methodology in the question period.
So now looking more again to a qualitative analysis of which one we're moving forward with, being the natural gases that Rob explained. So again, with 3 being the best and 1 being the worst, of course, the net present value of the project, with Rob just explained, the availability of inputs, and to reduce the reliance on coal is obviously a big one as well.
Thank you, Emma. So we do recommend for you to be implementing the modified time of use. So having to look at the peak time, the mid time, as well as the off time. And also to be shifting towards natural gases, as we feel that this will be the most beneficial for your company.
Okay, so now moving into a detailed implementation of using both of these strategies. How are we going to get you that sustainable growth that you want? So we're going to be discussing marketing, public relations, human resources, and finance and operations.
Thank you. So to look at marketing, first we want to have your creative teams as well as doing the marketing research. Now, it is very important to consider that in the United States, there is very high power distance. So this has to be considered when looking at the marketing campaign. So what is envisioned here is a marketing campaign for short-term results to be able to show with fear what will happen if we are not looking at efficiency for the environment. So this will be showing displays of blackouts. Now, considering the high power distance, we will be having scientists and high power people to be displaying these results, as it is easier for the population to believe it and understand the consequences of the actions if we are not efficient with the energy. Also, we have to realize that in the United States, there is a mix between long-term orientation and short-term orientation. So though they want instant gratification, the population in America often looks at the long-term results as well. So we have to be showing short-term what they can be benefiting from moving into this strategy, as well as long-term benefits. So in terms of looking long-term, we believe that you should be going into elementary schools and educating children on the impacts on the environment and how important it is to be efficient with the energy. That way, as they grow older, they will be able to bring this into their lives, and it will be happening for your long-term strategy.
Okay, so quickly, public relations, of course, there needs to be an announcement to the community through the government of this new project that you are proposing. There needs to be annual releases, keeping up with the progress, making sure that you're hitting all those goals and that the community really knows that. And of course, you need to promote the brand image of caring for the environment and society in some of the releases, as well as some of the initiatives Rachel mentioned in marketing.
In HR, you're looking to involve all the stakeholders I did introduce earlier. The key takeaway for HR will be encouraging transparency and accountability. So you want to translate your vision for energy efficiency on a company-wide level. You want to communicate this and ensure that there's positive feedback, there's a positive movement with all your stakeholders. You want to communicate your target operating model, and this refers to the targets in terms of capacity, in terms of price, in terms of energy, of your energy emissions, and you want to continue to celebrate and reward this.
Thank you, Amanda. And the last consideration for the implementation is the financial consideration. So in order to raise the capital necessary for this project, we recommend that you use rolling 8-year corporate bonds at your current AAA bond rating in order to raise that capital for the natural gas refinement. The base case assumption for this financial opportunity is that your 5.5% average cost of debt that you've been currently working on would have an 80 basis point premium attached to it. There also is included a sensitivity analysis of the effects of the changing cost of debt in the appendix. Again, I welcome any questions you may have on that in the question period. Using this cost of debt was how we calculated the NPV calculations to make our decision on which product would fit this business model best. What we look at on a timeline is that this strategy allows you, by 2032, to have your 4 main key components finished and be ready to kind of move forward into the next wave of providing energy for America. By 2018, you can have you can reduce your reliance on coal and replace it with natural gas. Starting in your second year of operations, we believe that you can change your pricing policy to better fit the market that you're operating in. In your first year, you can really push forward with that information campaign to get your customer base on board with the strategy that can really help you and them. And again, by 2032, we believe that this strategy can help you meet the growing energy demands in your country and reduce your reliance on foreign purchased energy products. And just a quick evaluation of risks. What we're looking at is you can hedge the price of any inputs in natural gas, and you can avoid any of the risks of legislation that was brought up earlier by moving away from coal and moving into a cleaner resource in natural gas energy.
Fred, I'm going to need to stop you there.
Well done.
Thank you very much indeed. Right, can I throw this open to questions? Let's just go down the line for initial questions. Guy, anything from you initially?
Yeah, you seem to like the idea of fracking.
Yes.
Is that politically acceptable in your mind?
I'm sorry, the clarification on what you define as what is.
Fracking is a fairly new term for us in the industry. We're a little nervous as to how constant the supply is going to be, where we're going to be in 10 years politically. It's not getting the best press in all instances. I think people in communities where fracking is taking place are a little bit upset with the way things are being done. There's a bit of like a gold rush.
Yes.
And that really, in my opinion, which I'm not really giving my opinion here, but I'm just asking you a little bit about your view of fracking.
Yeah.
And if fracking didn't work out, where would the gas be coming from? You know, is there reliability of supply?
Yeah, okay. The models that were built and based on the information that was provided was actually built on the assumption that fracking wouldn't be involved. What the fracking consideration went into was fracking, whether or not your firm considers using fracking, as you did definitely bring up, there is some political risk and sort of a brand identity risk. Some firms will choose to use this opportunity to capture more of the product, and it is a commodity. So having more supply in the market is naturally going to bring the prices down, naturally as supply and demand equals out. What this model proposed was using your current input price in natural gas, and even with the current levels of natural gas, as I can bring up with a quick demonstration of the input prices in this model, is that you're looking at the possibility of having natural gas only at 902,000 roughly, or closer to 903,000 as your cost per megawatt hour, compared to some of the other technologies such as nuclear, where it's in the range of 2.75 million megawatt hours. Again, obviously there is this concern and there is a risk inherent with the fracking technology, but the model is designed for both cases. We really wanted to identify it as an opportunity for your firm to potentially use it depending on how it aligns with your strategic goals.
Did you think to do any statistics about what quantity of gas is coming from fracking suppliers compared to the traditional sources?
Well, as fracking is particularly new in the industry, there isn't a lot of information on how, or like the long-term effects it's going to have on strategy kind of in the industry, especially in the United States. what the assumption was simply more of an opportunity right now. The natural gas calculations were based on kind of
Very good.
historical levels.
That's fine by me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, great.
I was going to ask a similar question, but I have a second question in mind. You mentioned that you would do a media campaign and you would base it on fear. I'm not sure that is right for the public to be scared to do something. So do you have any other more positive message that you can give to the public to adopt your strategy, to make them okay with it?
If I might answer this, fear has been viewed as being very effective when there is an end goal that is not ideal in terms of marketing. So it is very effective in the short term. It is used often by firms who want to show that the end result is so terrible that people have to start making changes and understanding why things must be changing. We are not only taking for your firm a negative approach, as we do want to be educating children in a very positive way, showing them all of the opportunities in terms of a long-term strategy. But short-term, we feel that it'll be very beneficial for your firm to be able to have some commercials showing some of the possible outcomes should there be no change, in order to help understanding a switch over.
And
Okay.
actually, if you don't mind, do you mind if I add over that a little bit? In my experience, in the early 2000s, California had a very big issue with energy prices, where their energy suppliers did a very aggressive fear tactics model where they advertised the idea of rolling brownouts, where they would have hourly drop-offs in certain districts around the city. This increased uptake of sustainable and efficient products and working off peaks significantly in the 2.5 to 3 year period that I was present, and we believe that model could work effectively in other regions in the United States.
Okay, thank you.
I just like to clarify one thing. This switch process is going to be first the education process that you are going to do, then you switch for the natural gas, or you are going to work together?
I'll just
On the implementation process.
This computer seems to have crashed on me. There we go. Okay. Sorry for the delay there. What we're looking at is kind of at the same time in that Monday. So Monday to first year, we identified as really the education process and where it starts. But the assumption, on an operations in terms of actually going into natural gas, that was determined to be something that needed to start immediately and follow through all the way to 2032. Again, not to pull up another slide on you, but what we're looking at in terms of trying to forecast out long term, we're looking at an opportunity where in order to hit the requirements, you're going to need to adopt roughly almost 2 natural gas refineries per year. Obviously, there's going to be a little bit of discrepancy because statistically it was 1.83, so some years you'll have 2, some years you'll have 1, depending on how it fits kind of the current real estate market and things of that nature. But it's going to, operationally, you're going to start investing in natural gas immediately, but you're also going to be doing marketing from the forefront as well. There's not going to be like a ramp up period for information.
Can I ask you about your implementation plan? Where are the points where we could actually change this strategy, if we wanted to, before the end of 2030?
Oh.
If there suddenly becomes a change from to renewables away from gas or whatever, where are the points there that we can then say, okay, this is where we need to think about change?
Definitely. Again, this plan is based on the idea, there's a lot of information here, but the third row from the bottom shows that you're only opening a marginal amount of projects per year. It's not an overarching goal of opening the total cumulative group right away. So every year you can reestablish whether or not natural gas based on commodity prices or whatever factor you may consider is right for you. Then you can consider some of the other NPV positive projects like nuclear and start investing in those projects. Again, year by year, it's marginal, but in a large overarching strategy, you're going to be making a large change.
Okay, sorry, just one follow-up question. You talked about your differential pricing strategy.
Yes.
That is designed to move people away from using electricity at peak times.
Yes.
With a cost reduction. That doesn't necessarily change the total amount of electricity that's consumed. You're just redistributing it.
Yes.
Have you thought about cost measures to try and reduce the consumption of electricity?
Well, your main goal was the idea of keeping the usage level across the full day, because as we all know, that energy cannot be stored. It has to be distributed. It has to either be sold or it has to be used. So by leveling out the playing field and keeping everybody and trying to help 24-hour process rather than strictly 9 to 5, you waste less energy because it's actually being used in those off-peak times rather than before, where your large generators and things of that nature are simply letting that energy go to waste. In essence, that's how it would help save and cumulative aggregate energy.
Any other questions?
I have a question. I'm impressed with how you are concerned with the company making money, which clearly we will be making money if we use your strategy. And that's very American of you, so I applaud that. But there is public opinion and there's legislature which we have to take into account. And there may be rules that we have to follow regarding emissions in the future. I don't see any contingency for those risks in your presentation yet. Is there? Is there?
Yeah, I take this. So, although the second risk we identify is higher prices from legislation, so these are carbon legislation and emissions. Although it's termed as a bottom line risk, this obviously has a broader risk on your company's reputation, as my colleague Emma mentioned. So at this point, we do consider that you diversify into other means. So maybe not natural gas, but you could look to use solar or wind to service those peak period times, or use other forms of energy, given that the reaction that you get.
Okay. We're done?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody has a
Represented.